Just a Job is the podcast for the modern woman to redefine what success looks like. We highlight real women and their real stories.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Just a Job. This is the first time that we are recording. Just kidding. That is a lie. We recorded our one-on-one. It is late. It is 6:30. Ellen, hi. Welcome back. How are you?
Hey, first episode ever. I'm great. How's it going, Sarah?
That's kind of what it felt like. Got a little nervous energy. But before we hop into our episode today with Holly, we're going to do our normal stand-up. But Ellen, I'm going to ask you just one question. How is the new year energy?
The new year energy is off the charts and not in a great way. What is happening in our country? I've had to stay off of my phone, away from the news. We're now going to have the Gulf of America. Like, what is going on? Everyone, please go check on your friends and make sure that they are okay. The energy is absurd and weird, and I need to go touch some grass is I think like my personal mantra for the next 30 minutes. Deep breaths. I don't think, oh my gosh, today's the day that I don't have notes. I am not prepared for my daily stand-up. I'm a terrible project manager. What's wrong with me?
You're putting pressure.
I usually take like a screenshot or two or share like a news article or a TikTok or something. And let me tell you, the only thing that I have to share, I have found a new hobby outside of work. All right, I'll tie this in to make this still relevant. We talk a lot about finding an identity outside of work, finding things that make you happy and can make you like relax outside of work. I have discovered the needle pointing community. Sarah, I'm going to buy you a little kit so you can do it. Oh my God, I have never been so relaxed. I've never been more excited to close my laptop and like go do something after work. I'll just send you a picture of the little canvas that I'm making. It is so nice to sit and just like a little grandma, do my stitches, and I'm so relaxed. I've been getting really good sleep. So that's my peak amongst the large pits. That's
Okay, I love that because we talk about hobbies, and especially if you can do a hobby that involves, like touch and hands.
Right, like being creative and doing something like tactically with your hands. I have been obsessed with it. Highly, highly recommend.
Okay, that's fun because I want to get into scrapbooking.
Cute.
This is
What
grandma
is that
behavior.
called? That we were the scrapbooking things or the art of things.
Oh, I have a things journal. Yes, a things journal. Thumbs up, Ellen.
We love the things journal.
It's just like random things like throughout your daily life that, receipt or a token.
A napkin at a restaurant.
Yeah, just things like that where it's like this has some relevance to it if I make it have relevance. So, okay, I love that. So then maybe our takeaway for our listeners is take whatever time you need this week. Hopefully this episode will bring you some sense of joy.
Find a hobby to go do. And again, hopefully this episode brings you some peace and harmony throughout the chaos that is going on. I particularly, I love every episode and I love every interview. I particularly loved the like unexpected conversation that we had with Hollie at the end of her episode. I won't spoil it, but it just like kind of, I love when the conversation just serendipitously gets to a place where like we can just really authentically speak and have like a really shared experience. That's my little, teaser for later, but I really, really enjoyed it. And I hope that it resonates with people because it really resonated with me.
Ooh, that's like watch to the very end. That's like such a good teaser. Thank you. And I also agree. So I think with that, let's hop into Hollie's episode. We are very thrilled to share this with you because it's our first guest episode of the year. So take some time, sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Hang on, pause. This is season 2. We are in season 2 now, which like,
oh, yes.
It's very exciting. So enjoy season 2, our very first interview of season 2. And let us know your thoughts on 1, needle pointing, and 2, Hollie's episode. Thanks.
That's your homework. Okay, we'll see you in there.
Hey, everybody, we're going to jump into an interview with Hollie Haskins-Cooley. She is a lover of beauty, fashion, and nature. She is a master stylist and owner of Session Salon. So, some of our Casey gals might be familiar with her, where she blends her small town roots with a global perspective to create a one of a kind Paris of the Plains experience. I love that phrase. Her passion for beauty and fashion sparked her career path and led her to become a national educator for L'Oreal Professionnel. As a L'Oreal Professional Balayage, oh my God, I can't even say that. That's a mouthful. L'Oreal Professional Balayage certified artist. She specializes in creating custom dimensional hair color that enhances each client's unique features, considering details like eye color, face shape, and skin tone for truly professional results. She's also extensively trained in advanced hair extension techniques, offering seamless and natural looking transformations. I want to go get my hair done after reading this. Her skills were showcased in New York Fashion Week, where she worked with Casey Welch's team on the Rebecca Minkoff show.
Cool.
Incredible. Hollie's career highlights include collaborating with L'Oreal Paris's labs and traveling across the US to inspire and educate fellow stylists through classes, salon visits, and stage presentations. Her dedication to her craft shines through her work, her teaching, and her commitment to continuous learning. Hey, Hollie, welcome to the podcast. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, quick little background on how we met Hollie. A couple of months ago, Toby, my old boss, reached out to us and we were invited to be co hosts for the Women on the Rise event. And as soon as we walked in, I spotted Hollie in her Reformation studded jeans. And I said, I must go talk to her. One, I recognize those jeans. And two, again, just have to open a conversation. So we were introduced to her through Chelsea, who we interviewed a little while ago as well. And now you're here. So we're very, very happy to have you. Enough chatting from me. Hollie, please tell me what you wanted to be when you were growing up.
So I would say really early on, I really wanted to be a professional volleyball player. But by the time I got into maybe junior high, I realized that was not going to happen. And I quickly changed my mind to wanting to become a hairstylist. I loved going to the salon with my mom growing up. She would pile us all in the van and we would go see our hairstylist. And I loved everything from like the smell to the shears and her fingernails clacking on the comb. Like, I just thought it was the coolest place to be. And then I always felt amazing when we left. It was my favorite place to go. So I thought, how cool would it be if I could make that a career? So it was pretty early.
Oh, we love when people know exactly what they're going to do from a young age. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, Ellen and I were like, "Ah, how neat would that be to just like have such a focus and a drive on like what you want to be when you grow up." Being that you wanted to be a volleyball player, quick question, are you like a pretty competitive person?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah.
extremely.
Yeah, that explains also too like your entrepreneurial journey, which we'll get into in a bit. So, knowing that younger you wanted to be a hairstylist, like at what point were you surefire this is it, and then what were the steps to go through schooling and all of that? Take us through that early career.
Yeah, so when I got to be a senior, I still kind of wanted to be a hairstylist, but I had this like, I'm too smart to be a hairstylist. I need to go to college. Like, people go to hair school as a backup, as like a side hustle. Like, it's not a real career. And, I got good grades. I was a good student and I wanted to go to college. Like, all of my friends were going to college. I felt like it wasn't the cool thing to do if I went to hair school. So I went to KU for 1 year. And my first semester, I was pre-business. And I realized I wasn't going to be able to pass calculus. So I switched to education because my mom was a teacher. All three of my siblings are teachers. I've come from a huge family of education background. And I went into like a sixth grade classroom and I was like, nope, also not for me. So I went home for the summer and I was like, what am I going to do? And I really wanted to go to hair school. And so I talked to my dad and he told me that he thought it was a great idea. And some of the best advice he gave me was, we have enough saved to get you through cosmetology school. We don't have enough saved to get you through 4 years of college. So if you if you stay on the traditional path, you'll have student loans. And if you go to hair school, you'll graduate at 20 years old, be debt free, and you'll start your career while a lot of your friends are still racking up student loans. And he was right.
I was going to say, let's pause and talk about that for a second
Mhm.
because we talk so much about obviously how difficult it is to decide a career path when you're that young and still trying to figure out what the hell it is that you're interested in and want to make a career out of. But I agree that you said that was some of the best advice that you got. And I'm like, preach to the choir because not only did you know what you wanted to do, but also that career path led you to have financial stability at such a young, early age, and to have the education right out of the gate to be able to, I'm sure, propel you out into your career. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to
Yeah.
give you
Cause
guys
I
a
mean,
hug.
at 20 years old, I made $30,000 and I thought I was rich because at 20 years old, you can get by on that. And then it, just built over time. But there were a few like setbacks. It wasn't just, on the straight incline the whole career.
Talk to us a little bit about those setbacks, what it was like, how you overcame them, etc.
Yeah, so I've always been a curious person and I've always been a hard worker. I've been driven. I definitely liked to. So I moved to Manhattan, Kansas, and are you guys both Kansas girls? Did you go to
I
Kansas State?
worked for K State. Sarah went to K State. So
Okay.
kind of, yeah.
Okay. So Manhattan. So I was there like also out in Aggieville 5 nights a week, but I made sure I always showed up to work. But I kind of got pulled in a bunch of different directions. So I think I was a hairstylist for 3 years and I got the opportunity to be a brand activation manager for Budweiser. And so they were like, we'll give you the company credit card. You'll get to run promotions. Your job is literally to go to the bars and buy people beer and run promotions. And the pay was pretty good. And it was like in the evening. So I was like, okay. So I went to doing hair part time and did that for a year. It was like the first time the Royals were in the World Series. I think it was like 2014. So it was so fun. And then, but in the meantime, I got offered the opportunity with L'Oreal Professionnel I got accepted to become an educator. And so I kind of had to like backtrack. So I ended up quitting the Budweiser job about a year after I started it, went and got my training with L'Oreal Professionnel to become an educator, went back to doing hair full time. In the mix there, I left my big salon and went and booth rented. And that was kind of a failure because I was really busy at first. And then my clients, in Manhattan, it's military and college. So they were moving away or moving to a different base or graduating, whatever. So I was I didn't know my path for sure. And then I think I was in Manhattan for 6.5 years before moving to Kansas City. So
Amazing. We
yeah,
probably had some sort of run in at some point because that's when I was in school. So I imagine we crossed paths, or maybe you bought me a beer. Who knows? The coincidence
possibly.
could have
It's very
happened.
possible.
Yeah, but Holly, I want to take a step deeper into like the world of being a hairdresser. Like, what is the business side of it? Because you talked about renting a chair, and like as a woman, most people know that like you either go to a salon and it's either owned by somebody, but like kind of talk us through just like the general structure of what the business looks like. I think that that's just like a good educational opportunity if you don't mind.
Yeah. So what's cool about our industry is there's lots of different avenues that you can work under. So there's a lot of different business models. So my preferred method is the team-based commission style salon. And I think that goes back to my background of being a volleyball player, of being on the dance team, of being a softball player. I love team-based sports activities. I think we're better together. And so when the two times that I have went out and booth rented, one was because I thought the grass was greener and that was my path. The other one was when I was in transitioning to open my salon. But the business side is extremely important. And I stand by like, if you don't know your numbers, if you don't know your KPIs, you're just kind of doing hair for fun and it's not going to be sustainable. And there's a good chance you aren't going to make a great living or you're not going to know if you're on your own, maybe you're not going to know what to set aside for taxes in my company, it's, if you don't know how many clients you're seeing every month, how many of them are requests, what's your pre-book rate, how many of them are buying retail. That's what kind of makes the whole package of like knowing your numbers and making sure that, you get a return on the customers that you're seeing. And if they're not coming back, then we need to look at like, why aren't they coming back and what can we do differently to make sure that our retention is better.
I'm hearing that businesswoman come out and I love it. I'm like, she knows her stuff. Look out, ladies and gentlemen. I have a question, I guess kind of maybe similarly, maybe an industry question. You talked about being a L'Oreal, like an educator. Talk to us about like what that means, what it takes to get like that credential, I'll call it, and like how that sets you apart from potentially other stylists in the industry.
Yeah, so that was 2014, so I've been with L'Oreal coming up on 10 years.
Congrats.
And thank you. And it's been a slow but beautiful journey. They are an incredible company. They are the industry founders of professional hair color that started in Paris in 1909. But I got suggested to be an educator because I was kind of that like person that always had an answer or always had a question in class, and I always wanted to share. And at the end of one of the classes, the educator came up and she was like, "I really think that you should audition to become an educator. I think that you would be a great fit." And so I did that. I drove to St. Louis and I did a presentation. And they accepted. And then you go through this like 6-day immersion process where they teach you head to toe everything about the professional brand. And then you have to go into shadowing. And then after shadowing, they'll start booking you like product knowledge classes. And then after that, you'll get like demo classes. And then after that, there's like all these different steps, so I didn't get on stage with them until maybe 5 years, maybe 6 years with them. And, every year, and a lot of times at the beginning, it doesn't pay well. And so, they want to see that you're invested in the brand, you're committed to them. But there's all these different, sometimes it is very corporate and political and you have to kind of play the game, but they also really make sure that you earn the right to be put in front of hundreds, if not thousands of hairdressers representing, their prestigious brand.
Oh, that's an amazing opportunity. Plus, too, like the idea of continued education, I think is so valuable in any industry. And the fact that you're able to work with like the best of the best. And we'll get into it in a bit, but it's afforded you the ability to travel and see the world. And I'm so excited to jump into that. But the idea of continuing to work as a stylist and an educator, did you ever have any sort of conflicts with like timing or balance? And especially since you were kind of earlier and younger in your career, like how did you navigate that? And what are some of the lessons that you learned from those early days?
So I've struggled with the word balance, and I think I've just decided I don't really believe in it.
Fair. Honestly, every
um,
time I ask that question, I'm like, well, first off, I should just say it doesn't exist, but
yeah, but I respect people that do find balance, and if
sure.
that's their journey, I coach to that, and I love that for them.
Hmm.
I am somebody that likes to do as much as I can, wear all the hats, and have a hand in everything. Because like I always say, I want to leave this industry better than when I found it. And so far, I've definitely had a hand in doing that because of the privileges with working with L'Oreal Professionnel, and then just the leadership positions that I've had when it comes to training new stylists and growing them into full-time stylists behind the chair.
Oh, so that's an interesting dynamic. Okay, I have to hang on. I'm saving that question for later because I want to continue your journey. I'm just
Okay.
this this whole like career field. Obviously, I'm a woman. I go get my hair done. I know of. I've participated in, but
Hmm.
hearing the back end piece of it is so interesting because of course there's a business and a strategy and numbers and KPIs behind it all. So I'm just that aspect of it is like so interesting to me. But I want to hear more about you. So, you walked us through your time in Manhattan and going through the L'Oreal Professional Educator credential. When did you what was the transition to Kansas City like?
So I knew it was my first full year with L'Oreal Professional. I knew I had to be in a city
Hmm.
that had an airport. Like if I wanted to really grow with L'Oreal Professional, I knew I needed to be closer to a bigger airport. So I was looking at Denver, Nashville, Austin, like cities that were really hot with young professionals. And one of my good friends, I was teaching a class in Kansas City and I went and visited her parents' house and she was staying there and she was like, "Halls, you need to move to Kansas City. She was like, you don't know anybody in those other cities. And she's like, you know people in Kansas City, and your opportunity to be a big fish in a small pond is so much greater here. And there's a lot of development in the city that Kansas City is going to be on that same path. And she was absolutely right.
Totally.
So I listen to smart people, and I definitely take, their insights and advice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you set yourself up. I feel like 10 years ago, like people inside Kansas City knew that it was going to be this booming. And now I'm like watching the news and I feel like I hear the word Kansas City and my ears always perk up. I'm like, hmm?
Yeah. And now we have like Taylor Swift living here on occasion. Like, what is going
Right.
on?
Yeah, couldn't have planned for that. That's for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, I love the idea of looking at opportunities and seeing, especially with such a network-based role, how can you maximize where you're at? Because, like these are people that are coming in and seeing you sometimes every 4 weeks or every 6 months, like me. I'm such a bad person to sit in a chair. Okay, so that's amazing. So the transition, and remind me again, Holly, where you grew up. Like, was it small town?
Yes, small
Okay.
town, Osage City, Kansas. So,
Yeah. So how was
yeah.
the transition, like moving to Kansas City, and what was that like? You mention you were renting a chair at that time?
No, so I moved from a big commission style salon in Manhattan, Kansas. I mean, they did hair, nails, facials, massage, everything,
Mm-hmm.
to a similar style salon in Kansas City. They didn't have all the spa stuff yet, but they were growing towards that. And I met with the owner, and he kind of showed me their career path, and he's a businessman. Like I learned a lot from him. And he was like, and so just did this much behind the chair, and she was like 10 years older than me. And I was like, I already do that in Manhattan, Kansas. So like, I like, give me more of a challenge.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, I knew that that was the place I needed to go. So it was in the River Market. I started there 1 month before the streetcar got up and running. Everybody was working at Cerner and living in an apartment in the River Market. So my first week there, I made more than I ever did in Manhattan, Kansas in a week.
What was
Amazing.
that
And I
like?
was like, let's
So
go.
cool. Yeah. I mean, probably very validating that one, you made the right move, two, like upward trajectory from there. Like, talk to us about like what the growth was like at that salon, probably feeling very solidified and confident in yourself.
It was wild. Like when I tell you, and I wish this were the case for the stylists coming in now, like the new stylists. But that 2016 boom in Kansas City was unreal. I mean, the salon, we were having like, for the first 3 years I worked there, we were having like 200% growth year over year. Like it was
Wow.
wild. So, we all were happy, making the most money we had ever made. The city was booming. It was a blast until it kind of hit this like we almost grew too big too fast, and things really started to change. And that was kind of where I was left with like, I had been offered a seat at the table. I had been, kind of groomed to maybe become a partner or buy into that company. And I was really flattered and excited to do that until I kind of started to watch some patterns. And that was kind of, I was getting close to, yeah, I was probably there for like 3.5 years. And I was like, I really think I need to take everything I learned here that was great and amazing, but take the things that I'd really love to change that I'm not getting heard or not getting across the table. And I need to go create this because I also don't believe that it exists anywhere else in Kansas City. So I have a really cool opportunity to create
Mhm.
Ooh, you're teeing us up perfectly. I feel like we've heard the origin story and now we're at the point of just like this is it. This is where like
it.
Holly and everything comes to be. So you're getting to that point and I'm sure it's a bit of a challenge because sometimes you look around and you're like, "No, I'm comfortable. Things are going well. There's opportunity here." I would rather some people this is like that fork in the road of like I would rather stick with what I know and do it really well or I'm going to dive into this unknown and just completely stretch myself with I'm sure your competitive nature you're like let's go for it. So, take us into the whole story of jumping ship and how session
Yeah.
became.
So, and this is where like I really knew that I separated myself as a leader because I was treated amazing. I had everything I could ever want, ask for. But at this point, I had probably trained 7 or 8 assistants, and they were all out on the floor. And how they were getting treated and they were getting spoken to was not cool with me. But I didn't have the most say, you know? So I felt like I was kind of becoming voiceless. So that was really where I knew I needed to make this change. So I got curious. I surrounded myself with people that had either opened a business or, you know, knew more than I did or had achieved more than I did. And I've never been afraid to ask people like that questions. And the cool thing about people that are successful, they're pretty willing to share. And so I just started tapping into all my different networks and kind of, you know, I didn't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. And so I just started looking at commercial property. I had a business partner at one point, and because I didn't think financially I could do it. I didn't think I had enough money to start what I wanted to start, you know? So we went through all of that, and we had a lease in our hands for something in the West Bottoms, and it got really serious. And the girl that I was working with, and her and I are still really great friends to this day, she was like, "This is all you." She was like, "I want to stay working in my like small little place. I want to support you however I can, but you need to go do this." It was the biggest favor anyone has probably ever done for me. And oddly enough, one of the spaces that her and I had looked at together, but it was too small for both of our businesses, was perfect for me. So the stars, once I started rocking and rolling, the stars just kind of aligned until they didn't, because that is when I found the space that we're currently in. It's a beautiful location. It's right by Woodside, which is a health and fitness club, and it's a really affluent neighborhood. We truly have an incredible clientele. Signed the lease on, I think, like January 5th or something, and 2 months later, COVID hits. This is in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So we were supposed to open in like May or April or May. And we completely had to stop working. Like everything was taken down. So I was underwritten and approved for an SBA loan. That's how I was going to fund this by myself. Underwritten and pre-approved, probably a week out from closing on that funding. And I got a call. And because my business was not operational and they needed to help the people that were already opened, it wasn't a no, but it was a not right now. And so I didn't have I didn't have the funds. So I got all kinds of creative. Well, I broke down. I cried. I thought the world. I drank a lot of wine. I thought my world was ending. But I had some really good people in my corner, and I opened like a 0% interest credit card. I found funding for our furniture. I found people that were willing to, take 3 increments of payments. I had some really good friends. I was told by my landlord that once I did the work, I would be reimbursed. That's common in a commercial space. So I had to front this money, and I had about 2/3 of it, but I did not have, I emptied my life savings to get this business going. And so they loaned me about $11,000 to complete the work, knowing that I would get a check back, and I paid them back immediately. And we got opened June 16th. So I think it was like 5 weeks after all the doors started opening back up after COVID. And we have been profitable since day one.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, that's so cool. It's like you were determined to make
Scrappy.
it happen.
Yeah.
So scrappy.
You did.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I was calling like contractors being like, this isn't just me. I've got 6 hairstylist careers on the line and they need to work. Like, we got to get this open. So it's crazy. Some of it was like a little traumatic. So I feel like I've blacked out and I don't fully remember the whole story, but, it's fun to tell every once in a while, because it was very dark times. And, I took advantage of a lot of people's sympathy for me too. Because people were so kind, so generous. I had some people like mailing me checks in the mail because they knew that I couldn't work, just like, here, take it. You know, I had another client that gets her roots touched up every 4 weeks, and she had a cancer scare, and she wanted me to come to her apartment to do her root touch up. And I was like, I can't get in trouble. But I did because, you know, it was like, we were both going through it, and she very generously took care of me. It was people like that that were able to keep the dream alive.
That's incredible. Again, like you didn't take no for an answer. Like I love the drive and passion and determination behind the story. Like all founder stories are incredible, but I really appreciate the ones where there was a failure, something didn't work, and you had to find a way to make it successful. And obviously you did. So congratulations. Talk to us a little bit about like the first couple of months once you opened. Like, did you feel like you had that I made it? Were you like, holy shit, what did I get myself into? What was your experience like?
No, I did not feel like I made it. I had like mounds of credit card, not debt, like because it had the 0% interest. Like
Mhm.
we've really never had like bad debt that we haven't been able to pay. But like, I think my business had $5,000 in it, and I was running like a $25,000 payroll at that time. You know, so if we weren't busy in our first 2 weeks, we didn't have cash flow, you know?
Mhm.
So fortunately, and I didn't pay myself for a while. Like I had a roommate paying half my mortgage. So that was helping keep I learned how little I could live on. And for someone
Mhm.
that really likes to spend and splurge, I know that I can get scrappy with my own personal finances to keep the greater good going. But yeah, so every time there was excess money, I was throwing it at the credit card debt, trying to pay that down. Um, but so the roller coaster was the first 2 weeks we were slammed. Like we were so busy, and it was just like everybody was so good at working together to make the operation work. And then we got hit with another COVID wave.
Mhm.
And so we were masked back up. We were splitting people apart. And then we kind of went through another like really busy time. And then we got hit with another COVID wave. And that went on for a year and a half of like this, you know, roller coaster. And so it was really trying, but we kept good communication. We took our cleanliness and the masking like really seriously because we work in such close proximity. So I think a lot of people really trusted us, and we learned how bad women still wanted to get their hair done.
Mhm.
Because they were knocking on our doors when we opened. So it was really
Not a
cool.
bad problem to have at
Yeah.
all. I mean, yeah, you think about it, you're like, okay, we're still working from home, but these routine things make us feel normal and have
Yes.
some sense of, I don't know, like I take care of myself because working from home that first few bit, everybody was just like a slug.
Yeah.
Nobody cared.
Right.
And then it was like, okay, I cannot continue like looking, feeling this way.
Yeah.
I want to talk. I know that you had mentioned like at your previous salon that you were stepping into this like leadership role, if you will, and had kind of a seat at the table, but like now you were the 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 head of the table. What was that transition like of, you know, coming from being almost like I call it like an execution perspective, but like being a stylist to like being in charge of everything? What was that like for you?
Well, I've always liked to be in charge.
Like not a problem. It's in my blood.
Which has not always been a good thing for me. It's really helped in business, but I've really had to like get in tune with my, you know, personal side. I've went to a lot of therapy. I don't like to just be bossy to be the boss, but I really do believe in a greater good. And so it was pretty natural for me. um, but at the same time, I knew how important it was to give other people the opportunity. And I always say that, like, when people come into the salon, I don't necessarily want them to know that I'm the owner or the boss. Like, I don't need that recognition, but I do know that I have, you know, kind of a gift of bringing people together and leading a team. But I also think it's important to find out what's important to the people that work for me and what influences their happiness, because I'm very aware that most people are not wired like me, and I don't expect them to be. And maybe there was a point in my life where I did expect everybody to be wired like me, but that has been something that's been really beautiful for the growth of our business, is coaching to what their happiness is and what their goals in work-life balance is.
Mm-hmm. Again, I'm sensing that like theme of drive and passion and determination, but it also sounds like you're very introspective and aware of not only having that quality, but then how it's reflected on others. And I imagine that, going through that leadership journey and getting to the place where you are now is probably had lots of ups and downs as well. Bring us to like opening, like ups and downs through COVID and like up to present day. Like, what's something that you're really, really proud of that you've been able to do with your business?
So something I'm really proud of is every year that we have been open for a full calendar year, we have done over $1 million in revenue. And there's less than 5% of companies in the US that have done that. There's over 30 million companies in the US, and less than 5% of them operate at over $1 million in revenue. So that is something that I don't take lightly. But I always say that with like salons have very low profit margins. So, and I still have to work very hard. So that is not, to be boastful about, but I am really proud of that. And it's the stylists and the team inside our company that have created that. That was not just me. I could not physically do that behind the chair myself. I am fully aware that it takes a whole company to do that. But we did have a struggle of, I think it was spring of 2022. We had a few stylists leave, and they were very successful stylists in our company, and I loved them dearly. And it was so shocking and hard. But at the same time, with that introspective, I looked at the opportunity that they got. And if I were in their shoes at that moment of time in my life, I probably would have done the same thing. So it was a very like bittersweet, but it was a huge portion of our revenue that we lost all at one time. So that really had me take a deeper look inside and being like, okay, what's not working? And one of the hardest things is they weren't actively looking to leave. Like, they were presented an opportunity that they couldn't turn down. So I tried to get some feedback from them, and I did, and it was helpful, but it really took some, introspective deep dive into, okay, how can we better this company? How can we create a space that, we support stylists even more than we already do, so that we can give them, kind of what they're looking for that maybe they're not already getting. So that was a really pivotal year of rebuilding, because it's hard to rebuild after losing, 3 veteran stylists. And I would say just in the last year or so, we've really built back that great foundation, and we have the best team that I've worked with since starting. And I think that opportunity to rebuild the foundation, and actually I would say we didn't have a great foundation because we opened in the midst of COVID. We were just like, throwing things at the wall, seeing what sticks. And it worked for us. So that opportunity to really build a good foundation was probably one of those, what I would consider like a slight failure, helped the future trajectory of our company.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's amazing. Also, let's just press pause. Congratulations on hitting that number, because that's
Seriously.
huge.
Thank you.
That's incredible. So yes. I so appreciate, and obviously we'll include everywhere. If you don't already go to session, you should. But I want to take it now to you and your current, like, what are some of the things that you're working on? I mean, we follow on social, you're traveling a lot. Like, what are things that you're looking forward to maybe in 2025, or something that's really exciting you, kind of in your personal, professional journey?
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to kind of taking a step back. I'm about to turn 35, and my goal is by 45, I want to be semi-retired, in the sense of like, you can hear in my voice, I'm still going to be working. But
choice. It'll be a choice.
yes, yes. And so I'm really focused on building the foundation of my company and growing other stylists and leaders inside my company. So, but yes,
Yeah,
we do want to grow and expand our business. And right now we're in, a space that we are pushing capacity at. So we are going to need more space. And so that's something that I need time on my books to go out and, find that and find what's right. So trying to grow us into more space. And on a personal level, I just got married this year, and we would like to start a family. So I'm kind of trying to build that foundation at home of like, I've been able to do a lot of the things I've done because I was single and I didn't have children. And I'm very aware of that. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm so grateful for everything I got to do, but I'm kind of trying to, get out of this, boss babe phase and into what could be maybe a mothering phase. Which is really exciting, but also terrifying because I'm really good at working hard and, saying yes to everything. And I know that my boundaries and my priorities will drastically have to change. But I'm excited for it and I welcome it. So,
Oh, well, congratulations on the wedding. That is very
thank you.
exciting. And I appreciate you sharing the like transition period and like you're effectively starting a new chapter. And Sarah and I talk about this a lot. We've talked about this with just our audience at large, but also with other guests of, the desire to work and then that desire to start like the motherhood journey, something I am currently thinking about and considering as well. So I'm right there with you. If you figure something out, like a magical secret sauce, share, please.
Okay.
I'd love some advice on that route or on that journey, but I appreciate you sharing that because as women that are really driven and career motivated, it's difficult to go through that transition and change your priorities and also know that your priorities are changing. So again, I appreciate that conversation because it's difficult and interesting to
Yeah. And
navigate.
it's honestly, it's a little bit of like, I think I'm moving past it, but I went through a little bit of like a grieving phase of like, my former life. I can't keep that former life of traveling almost weekly and, going out with friends a few nights a week and drinking heavily. And like, that's just not the life that I want anymore. So, but it's a life I really loved and really enjoyed. So I'm trying to figure out what that looks like. But I think once, it's, once I find out that I am pregnant in the future, that switch will change for me and I'll be able to switch into that mode. So it is kind of weird being in that like limbo phase of like, okay, when is that switch going to happen?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just trying to ride it out.
Yeah. I appreciate this conversation so much. I wasn't expecting it too because Ellen, we talk a lot about like, benefits and things that you have to consider before having a kid. And I think that the conversation unfortunately is so different between like if you're in a heterosexual couple, it's different between the male and the female, especially if the female is like this very driven, in your case a business owner. There's just a lot of considerations that you have to work through, and it's not just as like, oh, I'm ready to have a kid and like let's just do it. It's kind of like you have to look at your life and see what will have to change, and some of those things you don't know until you're pregnant or are able to have your kid. But it is this grieving period, if you will, because you're looking at what future life will not have in some sense of what you've been having, but also too what you will have because you'll have this whole new journey and life to take
Yeah.
care of and
And you
new
bring up,
love and all these things.
yeah, you bring up a great point of, so until I met my husband, I didn't think I wanted to have kids. I wanted to travel and be the fun aunt. And, I was very happy and content with that. But obviously, when I met him, that all changed. But a big part of the reason I didn't want to have kids, well, A, was because I was single. B, the beauty industry does not really have benefits. Like it is really hard to come by major medical health insurance, and there's very little paid time off. We do offer short-term disability through like Aflac where they can pay you, but that's one thing, like the beauty industry does not have a lot of benefits other than like really loving your job and the opportunity to make really great money to kind of supplement and, get your own health insurance. So it also helped when I married my husband that he works for a big corporate company that has really tremendous benefits. That also helped turn me on to the idea of wanting to have children. But I think that's horrible that that's the case in this country.
Oh, I think we
don't
could
get
have a
us
whole
started.
other episode about this, Holly. Yeah.
Part two.
I know. I literally just watched a video this morning about this woman talking about parenting in Denmark, and I was like, I can't watch this because I will throw my phone.
Yeah. I mean, when I got the opportunity to go to Paris this year, I was like, maybe we like try to move to Paris and like then we would have better health insurance if I could get a
Seriously.
job over there.
Maybe
Like, let me just throw everything I
maternity.
built away to have lower health insurance. That's crazy.
the thought that you even have to like think through that, and you're like, oh, yeah, no, that's twisted.
Yeah.
I have loved this so far. Ellen, actually, I'm going to pass the mic to you because I just asked the last question. I'll let you wrap it up.
Oh, well, my gosh. Well, thank you so much for
What
passing
an
the mic.
honor.
I would like love to do a part 2 because there's like several things I still want to ask you, and we're like almost up on time. But Holly, I'm going to ask you the big question. How do you define success for yourself?
I define success for myself in a couple different ways. So one is in the numbers, are we profitable? Are our customers happy? Are we getting good reviews and feedback? Those are a lot of ways. Are my employees happy? Those are a lot of kind of like numerical ways that I define success. But another one is, am I happy? Am I at peace? Am I grateful for everything that I've had? And the answer is yes. And so, if everything were to be over today, I would be very happy with, what has been successful for me in my life. And I'm grateful for all of it.
Amazing.
I love the look back too of like, if everything ended today, I would be happy. Like, that's a really good way to look at it because as it's ever changing, I just appreciate that, like, painted a very pretty picture in my mind. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and jump into some rapid fire questions. And while you don't have a traditional job, I'm very curious. Like, when I say traditional, I mean sad, corporate, womp womp. But I'm curious of your answers to some of these. But first, what is one thing you cannot live without to make it through the workday?
Yes.
A gorgeous little Stanley.
Yeah, my emotional support water cooler.
Yes, literally. A water cooler. Oh my God. Now I'm like over here, I'm like, I think I've had half a glass of water today. Explains why it feels like my brain's working at half speed. Okay, Holly. What's a workplace pet peeve of yours?
So I am like if like cabinets are left open or there's just like hair on the floor, which is, I mean, always, but if there's like just like little things that should be picked up and tucked away,
Sure.
those are things that I'll just start slamming cabinets shut and sweeping up hair, almost like come on, like
Sounds
let's
like
keep this
me
place
and
nice.
Okay, what is the best benefit that you've ever had from work?
I'm a hairstylist. The best benefit is that I love what I do. I love my customers. I love the people that I get to work with, because honestly, there's not, and that I get to, a lot of my travel is also a write-off.
Oh,
Ooh,
amazing. Okay, that's
a
gonna be
huge
my
plus.
last rapid fire question. Favorite place that you've traveled to because of work?
Paris. Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
Yep.
The mothership. Yeah.
HQ.
Mecca.
Yeah. I mean, when you think beauty and fashion, that is the place. And so people either love Paris or hate it, but it's definitely a love for me.
Ooh, I need to add it to my bucket list of travel places for sure. Holly, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you guys for having me.
Such a joy. And I really appreciated our kind of like unexpected motherhood and women's health conversation at
Important.
the end.
Yep.
Very
Yeah,
important.
I feel like this is a good, like I haven't like shared that with a lot of people, but this is a good way to get the message out that like that is what I want my future to look like. So if
Yeah,
you're
like,
afraid
hey,
to ask, don't be afraid.
right.
I'm not
Another
one,
great
like
message.
I'm a very open person. So
Mhm.
Love it.
Amazing. Well, we'll be sure to include all of the places you can find Holly and her salon session. Please make sure to follow her. She's incredible. And one, the fashion, two, the hair, and three, all of the travel. Like signed, sealed, delivered. Um,
thank you girls so much.
Thank you, Holly.
absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, Holly. And remember, it's literally just a job.